Hello, I'm Kads, and welcome to today's video. So we have once again come to the end of another rotation of the Cursed City, and guys, I have some excellent, amazingly awesome news. We did finally, we're not even going to bury the lead. We finally managed, for the first time in 24 rotations of this goddamn Cursed City, but we finally managed a full clear of Sintranos hard. So we'll be going through each of the stages, talking about some of the more difficult ones, of course, as usual. But yeah, as you can see here, proven by the hard quests. The first time ever, we'll claim this together as well, and we'll claim the whatever comes out of the chest. Hopefully, it's the first Carnage Soul. I think I'm like 8 or 9 of these in without a single soul for Carnage, so that would be great. But yeah, that is the big news for this particular rotation. We finally managed to do it, and again, we'll dive into that a little bit later. But I do typically like to start off these videos by highlighting that yes, I am an endgame player despite being free to play, which does enable me to relatively easily complete the entirety of normal mode when it comes to Sintranos, as you can see here by the highlighted fully complete quests. And then I make it as far as I can through hard mode. In this case, a full clear, but in general, I usually get stopped by the last like 3 to 5-ish stages on average, I would say, nowadays. And yeah, we'll talk about Amius as well. I do him both on hard and normal mode. So let's dive right in. I do have a fair amount of champions to talk about in terms of rebuilding them and repurposing them just to beat some of the harder stages near the end. Again, we'll get to that. But yeah, so stay tuned. There's a lot of champions to discuss that actually made this possible. A lot of builds as well that made it possible. But starting off stage 1. So this is our magic attack. This was the debut of Crocad in the Cursed City. I did showcase him recently as part of the free-to-play showcase. He is, of course, optimized for Hydra, so he's a bit on the slow side, but nonetheless, he does a lot of damage in his build, and so he definitely works in terms of Cursed City whenever he does end up getting a turn. But yeah, magic and attack, a little bit of CC from Countess Lix, notably unbooked. CC potential from Allure with her A2. It's a chance, but if she places the weak versus decreased defense, you can also sleep the targets. Fleshmonger, AoE decreased defense, Crocad DPS, Hefrak DPS. Moving on to stage 2, we have the exact same thing, more or less. Slightly different factions here, but Allure, same job, Countess Lix, same job, Crocad, Hefrak, same job. But this time we're bringing in Danax Skorreap, who's also unbooked like Countess Lix, who does a little bit of damage, but yeah, pretty much the carbon copy, same duo of CC, and then the same duo of DPS. Stage number 3, once again, the exact same thing with Allure, Countess Lix, Hefrak, and Crocad, and then Siege Hulk is this flex. I don't know why, it just kind of the stars aligned that this was like the factions that were chosen or whatever, but yeah, that's just how it ended up. But 1, 2, and 3, basically the exact same team. Stage 4, something different, thankfully. But Void Affinity here, carried by Narcissus as the primary DPS, Dagger is our debuffer, Arbiter is the speed boosting champion / reviver, and then Supreme Elhain is secondary DPS, and then Solus is a secondary, or a primary CC, I should say. Primary CC is the only one on the squad. Moving on to the Iron Twin, stage 5. This one is a pretty like walk away and come back when it's done type of fight, but Python keeps the team alive, Venomage provides some poisons, and Aox provides some poisons, but also his passive can extend the poisons. So the boss is essentially, we place poisons on the boss, and then he extends them by attacking us through Aox's passive, and it takes 5 minutes, so I walk away and I come back, and that gets done. So I didn't really bother to build a full, DPS team or a full like decreased speed type team for that one. Moving on to stage 6, this one is relatively straightforward given that I have a Rotos and a Gizmak, but nonetheless more gains coming in the mix is our turn meter boosting champion, Ugo is our debuffer, Siege Hulk is our primary DPS, or our AoE, I should say, DPS, but yeah, kind of carried by the legendary mythical here. But you do have Gore Grab, you do have Dark Elhain, you do have Supreme KO, so there's a lot, Lauren the Cutter, so there's a decent amount of other options that you could use to get that done, despite not having all the mythicals and legendaries that I happen to have. Stage number 7, this is Force Affinity, so we have Doom Priest in there as our cleanser, mainly for the Torments and Mollies and Goffred, or I guess everyone here in wave 3. But Thylesia, notably in a stun set, Lady Eresh is our primary DPS, Broodlord, I think he's in a shield set currently, but he has AoE stun potential in his kit on a 3-turn cooldown, which is pretty good, and then Rector Wrath, healer, reviver for the squad. Moving on to, let's jump to S23 real quick. As I always like to say for these, the awakened stages depend completely on who you happen to have and who is high enough awakening for you to qualify. And so this is the team that I selected for mine, but of course you do have access to like Fabian, so if you got his soul from his Hero's Path or whatever, then that could work as well. But I decided to run Deacon, who I just lost. But I decided to run Deacon for the decreased defense, but it's 5 stars is the same thing. Wukong got him his soul from his Titan event, Fenix from a pull, Python from a pull, and Mezamel from a pull. But again, it just whoever you happen to have that helps you qualify, and trying to build a succinct team around that. So that's the team that worked for me. Good mix of support and DPS. S8 can definitely be a tricky one to deal damage because it is HP and support. So I'm lucky that I get to abuse Frolny for this purpose, and Gizmak as well, because they're supports / HP champions. But yeah, Venomage is probably the hard carry for a majority of you guys. Brogni because help protect your team, and then Ugo again blocking the buffs, but also the debuffing. But yeah, this is easy for me, but it might be difficult for you just depending on who you happen to have. Moving on to stage 9, the Sand Devil. This one is definitely a slow and steady type approach. So we have Python kind of just staying alive, being the anti-affinity here relative to the boss who doesn't get crit, and he revives everyone. Ugo can heal people, restored max HP. We're hoping for non-weak hits from Fanax when he does his damage, but primarily Gizmak with the burns, and Itchy just because I just wanted someone who can deal, who's positive affinity against him, who can just deal some damage. So slow roll. I think it took about like 12-ish minutes on full manual, something like that. But yeah, Python's kind of the key to making that work, just because he's so damn tanky. S10, we have another Void Affinity stage. Once again, Narcisse and Solus for me, kind of bringing in the duo of damage plus control. We have some poisons from Uragrim, a little bit of healing as well. We have reviving in case, as needed, I should say, from the Broadmaw, and then Skrank is our kind of secondary DPS, but also AoE HP burn, which is a good source of damage as well, especially when they're CC'd by the Solus. S11 here, we have hard mode Ice Golem as well as the Nether Spider, and this strategy here is basically that for the first onslaught of poisons, we kind of just take them and throw them back on the Spider herself using Helior's passive, or using his A3, I believe. He is not booked on my account, but I nonetheless just kind of use him for that. And then eventually everyone dies. A little bit of burning, of course, from Drexthar when he gets attacked, but essentially everyone but Kyoku and Stultus die because he's immune to the poisons. Stultus is built for damage, so he just kind of solos the rest of the fight because he's reflecting all of the poisons, and so we don't have to worry about him dying to the poisons. And then Kyoku block damage, keeps herself alive, decrease attack, reduces the damage from the enemies, and then eventually we just kind of win with those two. The other three just kind of die. They do a little bit of help in the beginning, but for the most part, they just sacrifice themselves for the greater good. And yeah, be interesting to see or try out Leonardo later on, because he does qualify for the stage. So he's relatively recently built as of this recording. It is not fully maxed out, so I'd be keen to see that in future rotations. Moving on to S12. This is literally just Armons. Armons controls the waves, and then we can kind of fill it in with whoever you happen to have. Scylla Drakes could also be help. I guess Scylla Drakes plus Armons is a really, really solid combination of champions here. But once again, abusing my Gizmak, but we have Venomage in there for the poisons, Ignatius in there for the irresistible HP burn, Ugo in the same role, block buffs as well as decrease on the defense. S13, we have more magic affinity shenanigans going on here. I used to run a different team to beat this stage, but I find it a little bit easier to run with the Ancora, specifically when you get to the wave 3. If Mashald gets a turn, or the battle starts to poison you, Uros starts to poison you, then it's just really easy to just cleanse it all off and kind of reset the fight. But yeah, Gaius is kind of the hard carry with the bombs and the sleep that can really easily control one or multiple people, and they kind of just die whenever they get their turn. As long as it's not cleansed off, obviously I have to worry about that for wave 3. But Judge is notably in a stun set, Countess Licks in there once again, AoE block active skills potential, and then Hefrak is there as the primary DPS. Now I did beat this before the buff to Narma went live, so it would be interesting to see if she could be useful here. If you put enough debuffs out there, she could, AoE poison everyone more or less, and that could be interesting as well. Come around and activate it. I'd be keen to see that. But Allure, you could also use her as well, as we showed in the first couple of stages. Kale can work as well. Foley, Kaimar. There's lots of good champions here, but I'd say Gaius is definitely the one that makes it the easiest, I would say, on paper. Jumping down to S16, we got another Void Affinity stage here, so we get to use a lot of the free champions. So we got Lydia in the mix, we've got Vizix in the mix for the provoking, debuffing from Lydia, debuffing from Mithrala as well, and then I'm bringing in Madame Saris just in case they get some turns I could strip off their buffs, and then Supreme Kale is just because he's there. He's in a stun set, so he has AoE on the A1. I guess he has AoE on every ability, but he's unbooked on my account, but he has potential to place the 3 AoE poisons that cannot be resisted, so that can be a fairly consistent form of damage. Moving along, let's go to S25. Let's stop at S25. Yeah, another Awakening stage, so the same logic as the first one, depends who you happen to have. In my case, we're using Armor Armand's once again and got his soul from, I think it's Titan event. And Cora's coming back in the mix. Ugo got her from a pull. Narcisse was purchased all the way up to 6-star from the merchant. And then Crowden, I think that was a pull that he got him to 4-star. But Crowden's the secondary CC with the freeze, primary CC with Armand's, and then we get to abuse and Cora and Narcisse together with Ugo being the debuffer once again. Hopping over to S14, we get another show of more Magic Affinity stuff going on here. This one took a couple of goes, I think, but Duck the Pierce is our primary debuffer for the squad, so that does make it relatively easy. Also can CC a little bit with the Provoke. Double stun sit here with the rares, Kale and Judge, and then we have Gaius once again. We're doing the same thing with the CC potential and the bombs, and then Crocat coming in there as the janitor, the slowest to kind of clean things up if there's someone lingering with the AoE on the A1 or just a single target A3. Let me jump down real quickly to Fire Knight before we get to some of the more interesting back half stages. So this is my Fire Knight team. Morgane, obviously the MVP. If you can manage to get the shield down, she gets a passive hit reduction just by taking a turn, or places hit reduction with her passive just by taking a turn. So that makes it ridiculously easy to prevent him from healing. But the hardest part is getting the shield down and maintaining it. But this team, it takes a few iterations to kind of get in the perfect cycle, but eventually the stars align. My Catacomb Counselor is notably a relentless set to kind of help him cycle through his ally attack, but essentially as long as we bring in Rhonda enough times, we can start to place or start to hit the boss enough, get hero reduction out there, get decreased speed from either Stag Knight or Morgane's A1s, and then slowly but surely we can whittle down and DPS the boss. He does put the shield up many times during this particular fight, as obviously we don't have any freezes on this team, but the main thing is that we just keep up the damage over time and maintain decreased speed and hit reduction predominantly. And then eventually when he gets below half health, Rhonda's A1 starts to do 4 hits instead of 3, so then it becomes really easy. So that really the hard part is getting it and getting him below half, just because Rhonda only has 3 hits, but every time after that she joins in with her passive, you get 4 hits into the shield, which is pretty easy as far as getting it down after he's low health. All right, so now let's talk about the more interesting stages. Well, maybe the least interesting of the bunch, which is going to be S20. But Crocad coming in the mix again, I was able to drop Danag, who I honestly is a relatively underwhelming champion. I'm not a huge fan of him, but I digress. So yeah, we got to bring in Lord Chamford, which might surprise people that he would be useful in the Cursed City. But believe it or not, that decreased accuracy, decreased attack can kind of be really helpful for keeping your team alive, and so that helped us a lot dodge some CC here and there with the decreased accuracy. But yeah, that was his job. But obviously the elephant in the room here is that this team was absolutely carried by Nice, and so kind of just being able to revive people, CC people on the alternate form kind of saved me, and it allowed me to get through. It'd be really difficult without it. You'd probably need a lot more CC, stun set, R-Attack or something like that to really get by without, especially for wave 2. Wave 2 is the absolute worst. But yeah, so Rhonda coming in there blocking passives is really handy, especially for wave 2. You can block a lot of the annoying champions. Potential for AoE block active skills from killing the Lucky, which is pretty nice as well. He is unbooked, notably on my account, and we talked about Crocad as well in Lord Chamfort. Moving up to the other Fire Knight variant, which is hard mode plus the Frost Spider. So this one was a new team for me, a new challenge for me. I hadn't faced this iteration before, and we kind of worked it out a couple streams ago, but I ended up settling on this particular squad. But I did have to rebuild or put gear back on a couple of champions. So I have Apothecary in the mix. Of course, we have the triple hitter on his A1, which is really handy when it comes to the Fire Knight portion of the stage, but also the spot heal is nice, and the turn meter fill, increased speed is handy as well. Royal Guard's in there because it has a quad hitter, which can be helpful for the Fire Knight bit, but also it has decreased speed, which is useful for the Fire Knight bit, and the enemy max is damage, of course. Dugor is in there primarily because he's a healer, shielder, but also the double hitter on the A1, and then Wallmaster Tharon is our primary DPS there with the decreased attack, block boss, but also the enemy max HP hits. And then who on earth is this? This is a shout out to the chat from the stream, but someone tossed out the idea of running a Coffin Smasher, who I had used long, like early game, probably 4.5-ish years ago now for Demon Lord Clan Boss. And yeah, he has a triple hitter on the A1, which is pretty useful, and then he has a chance to place HP burn. I think a 75% chance to place burn on his A2. So if you're wondering, that is how we were able to actually kill the Frost Spider without having her indefinitely revive. But yeah, I built him in Relentless as well, and so triple hitter whenever he would get back-to-back turns. That's 6 hits into the shield, and so just eventually the stars aligning between everyone's hits and whatnot, we were able to break the shield down, get the decreased speed out there, start dealing damage. There's no heal reduction notably on this squad, so it was basically just a DPS race every time we could get the shield down, slam him with enemy max HP, and just try to cycle through abilities quickly enough to do the same thing when the shield came down the next time. So yeah, interesting fight on that one. No, we'll come back to S18. Let's do S21 here. This one's pretty straightforward, but we have the lovely Christmas couple there, Lady Noelle and Sir Nick. So we're basically unkillable the entire time, and then we just slowly whittle them down. Supreme Elhain doing a little bit of damage, and Inquisitor Shamel's doing some damage as well. You could also use Ethelyn the Golden, and then Arbiter coming in again as the primary reviver, but also Lady Noelle, of course, has a revive. And then the Irresistible Freeze is useful as well for the CC. So lots of control here and a decent amount of damage. So good all-around squad there from the lovely Christmas couple. Moving on to 22, we've got Dark Fae as well as the hard mode dragon. And this is a pretty interesting one just because you can run into the trap of starting to stack a lot of, resistance and tanky champions, but to survive the dragon, but then they're too tanky to kill relative to the Dark Fae. So I ended up with this kind of in the middle squishy-ish team. So we still have some poisons for the dragon with Venomage in the mix. Rhodos doing his things, but Gaius once again coming in clutch. The AoE sleep and the bombs can basically kill all the mirror copies off rip. Morrigan kind of helps us stay ahead of the mirror copies as the turn meter boosting. Then Kale once again poisons in his kit, but also in the stun set, just in case someone happens to survive the bombs, which they definitely did not. But yeah, pretty straightforward team. So I definitely avoided using, like Ancora or like an Eric's or something super tanky, be harder to kill. But once again, Narma was not yet buffed at the time when I completed this. I'd be keen to see try her out alongside Venomage and see if that can be a little bit easier, speeded up. Lots of more poisons there. Let's jump to S24. This one was done for the first time as well, just because I hadn't happened to see this particular iteration before. But Fabian coming in the mix, Deacon once again, Siphi alongside Narcisse once again. Both of those were purchased through the merchant slowly over time, all the way up from I guess 0 to 6 stars. I think I got Siphi's 2-star from a Hero's Path maybe last February or something like that. But nonetheless, most of the way it was just through the merchant. But yeah, and then Samson, I just threw him in there, just HP based DPS to kind of go alongside Narcisse. But essentially Narcisse kind of carried it. We have decreased defense from Deacon and then lockout from Fabian. Pretty cut and dry on that one. Use whoever you happen to have and try to make the best team that you can. So now let's get to the interesting ones, the hardest, the most difficult stages of this particular rotation. S19. This is the first ever time I've ever beaten any rotation with S19 in the mix. I guess it's ever rotation with the S19, but the first time I was actually able to beat S19, the infamous Tars and Mariska stage, and that was because of the recent addition to my account, Molly Tankard. Some of you may have wondered why on earth, why is she in my top 5? Why was she on my top 5 most wanted non-board legendaries? Partially because of the Cursed City, because she has the AoE provoke that is affinity friendly, so you don't have to worry about anything dodgy going on there, and then potential to place it for 2 turns, which is absolutely fantastic. So she was super powerful, and I actually beat this in 1 try, which is kind of still amazing, baffling to me that it was that much easier versus like umpteenth tries, with different compositions before. I think this is the one where I got all the way to wave 3, and then like the Yumiko passive stole the veil from Loki, so I didn't spread block active skills, and then we just wiped immediately. But with this team here, Molly Tankard kind of carrying the squad, reviving people as needed, because definitely people did die. The Stock the Broken allows us to ignore Marichka's passive when we place when we place the burns with Ferric and the Fat. So super solid team there. Stun set on Soulbond Boyer, and then Loki. Honestly, underrated champion for the Cursed City, but I do want to book him eventually, but currently he is unbooked. Molly is, by contrary, booked. But yeah, big progress there. Molly did a lot of work to carry the squad all the way through, so super excited to get her finally on my account. And then last but not least, we have S18. This is the one that took me many hours, and I don't even want to think about how many hours it took. So many iterations, so many different builds, but we finally got it done. S18. This one's not too wave 1 is not too bad, wave 3 is not too bad, but wave 2, the double hegemons can absolutely be the bane of your existence, and it was the bane of my existence. But I was able to get it done with this squad here. So we have Shatterbones in there for the turn meter suppression, as well as the turn meter fill in a decreased speed on the enemies. Fenchy's in there just because he's a decent single target DPS, but he also just helps soften up people for our primary AoE DPS, which is Alika, also with the potential to lock out on her ability. War Maiden is in there as our debuffer, and then Elder Skarg came in so clutch with the CC. Even though he is unbooked, and this is a long 5-turn cooldown, but the ability to just place provoke on legendary champions, there's a lot of enemy combatants that are legendaries by chance, and so he just places provoke, so he can do that, but also he can place the fear, which can be helpful as well, but primarily it's just to provoke, control them for that 1 turn, which allows the other people to do other things. But then if you kind of set the table up right with this ability, again, he's unbooked, but it's a triple hitter, but he can place up to 3 extra hits depending on the number of buffs and or debuffs on the target. And so he can steal buffs as well, but he can place AoE HP Burn and then AoE True Fear if he gets all 6 of the hits. So he's not built for damage. We'll look at the build a bit later, but nonetheless, it is nice to get that soft CC from the True Fear and then the AoE on the HP Burn, which can be, again, useful for surviving the waves. Yeah, this one was definitely brutal. I want to say at least 3-ish hours of attempts, all things considered. Some of that on stream, most of that just off stream. I beat it today, actually, at least at the time of this recording. But yeah, I'll highlight a little bit more of the strategy here. We're going to talk about the builds that I used on the champions. So with that, we do indeed have the first full clear of Sintranos Heart. So let's claim our chest. Now, it's just pure happenstance that we're ending at 100 here, just because of the way I've partially done other rotations. We started this rotation, or we happened to start this rotation at 0, and we happened to also full clear, which means we get all the way to 100. So we can collect our chest, and fingers crossed we get the carnage soul of our dreams. And no, we still have not gotten it. Darn. Yeah, I literally think we're like 10 or 11 chests in, and I still have a 0-star carnage, which is really depressing. But we'll take the mythical chaos ore. That is helpful. The barrel is nice as well for maxing out a new champion that we built from scratch. 1 million silver, pretty nice as well. But hey, we'll take it. That's a re-roll on the mythical, maybe merciless piece or something. We could get something pretty dope. But yeah, that's awesome. Let's hop over to the Amius Teams. We'll start off with normal mode. So this one I think was the less serious one. Yeah, this one was. Mora Gain makes it really, really easy. Her passive, once again, hero reduction, cannot be protected hero reduction. So he kind of is susceptible to that. And then Nishak is in there as primary or secondary DPS. Rhodos is in there as primary DPS. And then regardless of which form he's on, if Rhodos kills him with the A3, block revive, then it's kind of over. But in the meantime, we have a bunch of the bombs and the poison is doing damage for that. And then Arbiter, Sify kind of keeping both of them alive. And then on hard mode, this was a more realistic or a more normal built team. But we have this cool team here with Walking Tomb Drang. We have Doom Priest in there. We have Venom Mage as our primary hero reduction champion. Newt in there is our primary DPS. And then Pythion is our healer, reviver, cleanser for the squad. What's nice about Doom Priest, even though she's built for my Demon Lord clan boss team at the moment, but nonetheless, when she gets a turn, she can cleanse off the sleep and when he's in form too. So you can actually get a turn without missing, or you're not guaranteed to miss that turn when he's in form 2, so you can kind of do something else. And the Walking Tomb Drang, typically you want to avoid reducing the cooldown of abilities, which you can see here on the A3, but if you time it correctly, when he's about to change forms from form 1 into form 2 anyways, you can just get basically a full heal depending upon the relative HP of your champion. So kind of a secret ability there alongside the HP burn, of course, irresistible burn for the damage side of things. All right, so now let's highlight some of the champions that we talked about that were built for this particular rotation. I'll start off with Crocat just as an honorable mention. I go into a lot more detail of his build in his dedicated free-to-play champion showcase video, which I'll put in the card up above in the upper right-hand corner, but he is in a 6-piece merciless set. So I do encourage you to go watch that video if you want to see exactly what he's built for and what he can do relative or against the Hydra Clan boss. But yeah, 6-piece merciless is his build. I'll jump to Molly really quickly because she is in work at the moment in terms of masteries, but I did build her in a reflex set. Originally I had her in something different, and I wanted to test her out in Hydra a little bit, so I switched to reflex, and I just kind of preferred that overall. It worked a little bit better than I thought, but yeah, reflex and perception, 1 piece of feral. But on her total stats, 50 or 60-ish thousand on the HP, 4,200 on the defense, 255 on the speed. So very, very fast. And then I built her for high resistance, high accuracy, high resistance relative to PvE content. And so she doesn't get CC'd, especially when she's drawing a bunch of attention by provoking the enemies, but she still has enough accuracy to land her provoke on all enemies again in PvE content. So for 500-ish, or almost 500, and then 400 on the accuracy. She does not have a relic. She is fully booked, as I mentioned before, and then I put Lightning Cage on her because eventually we'll see. I do want to try and run her in a Hydra Clan boss team. She's not currently in one one at the moment, but Lightning Cage helps her be more of a mischief tank alongside of her reflect damage, which is relatively unique across most teams, and so that can help her draw the aggro from the head of mischief. Masteries are partially complete, but you can kind of see what we're going for here. So hugging the entirety of the left-hand side of the offense tree, coming down ultimately to War Master, support tree. We start off on the right-hand side with the debuffer side of things, but we're banking all the way back to the left because she is also a reviver. So Spirit Haste, more speed if people are dead, gets her back or gets her to her turn, which she might revive people quicker. Lasting Gifts to extend the duration of her reflect damage, again thinking with Hydra in mind, the mischief tanking and whatnot. Lore Steel for the extra stats, and then Cycle Magic, she's in a reflex set, so if you happen to get a double proc, this plus reflex, she could do a back-to-back AoE control on the Head of Decay or in a wave or something like that, so pretty useful there. But yeah, that's the plan for her masteries, partially complete at the moment. Those were the two champions that were freshly built, not necessarily for the purposes exclusively of the Cursed City, but just freshly built, recently built in general. But now we move on to the champions who have been built before, then now they were rebuilt or repurposed for their particular stages. So first up is the MVP of S18, which is Elder Skarg, and I have him in an immunity set. A lot of people would probably just run Stone Skin. That is the best way to get around a Hegemon. You survive the damage, but also you're immune to the block actives and whatnot. But since I don't use Stone Skin on my account, immunity is the next best thing, so we're protected from that. We don't have to worry about being locked out, and then he can start off the wave with the provoke and start the chain of CC across the entire team. Perception alongside that, just to get his accuracy up to the appropriate level. I did not build him for damage. I didn't have enough good spare damage gear to get him to the right level of speed I needed, as well as the accuracy and everything else. So he's basically just a support, even though he's attack based. But 55,000 on the HP, really low defense, but not much you can do about that. He's an attack based champion, relatively squishy. 245 on the speeds are pretty quick, and then 345, 350 is around where the accuracy you want to target for dealing with the hard mode Sintranos stages. For the relic, I do have one on him. I just have one of my golden elixirs, just the epic 2-star versions, and just when he gets attacked, he's relatively squishy. He's provoking them. He's going to draw some aggro, and he's not tanky at all. So this can help him heal up a little bit, and you can kind of chain heal if you're kind of sitting on that threshold between like 45 and 50%. Kind of keep healing yourself, but once again, he's unbooked, and I do have a blessing on him. This might seem kind of random, but because this is the only time I've really used him, there are some potential CCA1 champions, and so I have Indomitable Spirit on him just so he can block, but have a small chance, but a chance nonetheless to block some of the CC that might come his way because he's a provoke target. And then no masteries, of course, because he's exclusively a Cursed City champion. Moving right along, we have Shatterbones, who is naked, but I did use my transferable shield set, which we can see here. The shield set, we can try it on. But yeah, you can see the stats on him, but it varies person to person. But this is kind of my set. It's on Stag Knight. He's typically the one who wears this set when he's doing what he does. But in this instance, if I just need a shield set on a composition with speed and accuracy, then I transfer this one around and use it as needed. So I needed someone in a shield set to kind of protect us from, again, the Hegemons doing a lot of potentially creating and doing a lot of damage. It's a force attack wave, so everyone is squishy by nature because they're all attack based, and so the shield set just kind of soaked up some of the damage from that, and we were able to get that done. But yeah, so that's what was transferred onto him. We're not going to talk about his stats. Golden Elixir, once again, same logic as on Elder Skarg. If they happen to take damage from Hegemons or whoever else in the waves, they can heal up a little bit when they get below half health. He is booked because he's an epic. I have the Cruelty blessing on him. He's only a 2-star, but he does have a triple hitter here, so he just decreases their defense with Cruelty, which is pretty handy. And then masteries, not really done, because once again, he's a Cursed City champion. I think initially, or his original build was more of a damage dealer type thing going on, and so that's why he has the crit rate and the accuracy. But yeah, now he's kind of just naked. So I don't know. I might put his old gear back on. I might just have him be naked until I need him again in this particular rotation. We'll see. I don't know. I don't know if I will ever want to do a full clear now that I kind of have that pride out of the way. We'll see in the future. Moving on, next up we have War Maiden, who is also naked, because in order for me to get this done, she was originally in triple perception, but I changed her into a stun set, but I didn't have it from on one specific champion. I kind of just stole a bunch of pieces, I guess 4 pieces from 4 different champions to make it work. But it was just, I took away a lot of her damage and just put her like crit rate gloves, speed boost, just made her fast in the stun set, and she just hope and pray that when she does her AoE, decrease defense, she would land some stuns. And eventually in the run that worked, she did come in a couple of times with a couple of stuns, But yeah, nothing, no preset to show you on that one, because again, it's on 4 different people. But her normal build was triple perception. I actually do have to put it back on, because I do use her in Faction Wars. But the same logic is here as the other champions here with the golden elixir. I just happen to have a lot of these lying around, so it's easy to kind of just throw them on people as need be. She is fully booked, as she's a rare, of course. Banner Touch is the blessing. Have her at 4 stars, a little bit of potential for extra damage. And then masteries were done on her a long time ago. Back in my day, she was like your first debuffer. Nowadays you can definitely start with promo codes and whatnot to get you going. But when I started to play, she was kind of your first major debuffer, so I didn't get her partially done masteries. But the offense tree, pretty much the standard debuffer stuff you'd see on anyone else. But hugging the left hand side of the offense tree down to War Master, right hand side of the support tree, you could come down to Sniper, Master Hexer as need be. But I didn't opt to, because I think at some point I got someone better, or when I was farming her masteries, I guess I got someone better who was an epic and beyond, and so I just kind of worked from there. But yeah, moving on with the last 2 champs to talk about, we have Apothecary, who is in, like I mentioned, a Relentless set with 2 pieces of stone skin for the resistance. So he's just meant to be fast and have some amount of resistance and crit rate, because he has the critical heal going on. But his gear is not great, let me tell you that. It's pretty terrible. It's just bare bones leftover Relentless gear, but nonetheless, extra turns is the main thing, because of the triple hitter on the A1 here. 56,000 on the HP, 2,600-ish on the defense, 251 on the speed, full crit rate, 371 on the resistance. Not really enough for the fight, but that's just the limitation of my gear. And again, he's not in my best Relentless set or anything like that. He got the leftover, so he doesn't have the best rolls in terms of speed and resistance combined. In terms of a relic on him, I did use one of my Perched Shadows. I don't have too many of these. This is a relatively new relic, I believe, but extra 10% chance, or I guess it scales up, 12% chance to get an extra turn when using their default skill if one skill is on cooldown. So again, kind of synergizing with the Relentless set, he has a chance to take back-to-back turns and get more hits into the Fire Knight's shield. He's booked, of course, because he is a rare. I switched him to Miracle Heal. I think it was in something else before, but because Fire Knight destroys your max HP, having the spot heal potentially restore some destroyed max HP was pretty handy. But again, primarily just spamming his A1 and was his job. And a very long time ago, same thing with the other rares you may have seen, but I used to use him in dungeons. I've been playing the game for basically 5 years at this point, so a lot of these rares were built initially when they were more important and kind of all you had. But nonetheless, we have the sickle of the offense tree with coming to the left hand side but banking back over to Giant Slayer, because of course triple hitter on the A1. Support tree mainly on the left hand side. He is a healer, speed booster type champion, and lower steer for the stats and whatnot, all the healing stuff going on there to make sure that he can heal as best as possible. And then last but not least, we have Coffin Smasher, who is completely naked because I took all the gear off. But yeah, basically stole some Relentless gear from other people, threw it on him really quickly, and all he needed to do was have enough accuracy to potentially land the burn on the spider, and then take as many turns as possible and keep A1 cycling on the Fire Knight shield to get it down. And that was literally his one job. So I put some gear on him, got the job done, took it back off. But yeah, Relentless set was the way we went. No relic on him. He is booked. He is a rare, of course. No blessing on him either by happenstance, although Phantom Touch would be pretty handy in hindsight. And then because he's once again one of my legacy champions, so I used to use at the beginning of the game, he does have full masteries here. So Giant Slayer on the offense tree, lots of the clan boss kind of extra damage stuff on the left hand side of the offense tree, support tree, a little bit of the accuracy boosting stuff, but notably dodging the turn meter stuff because he was on a speed tune team at the time when he was used in Demon Lord clan boss teams. But yeah, accuracy sniper to increase the chance of placing the burn, because it's on 100% chance on the A2, and then Master Hexer to extend, potentially extend that HP burn. So yeah, there you have it. That is my progress for rotation 24 of the Curse City. This was definitely an interesting one, and I definitely fought really hard to get the first full clear. Like I said earlier, I don't know if it's necessarily worth it, just because, yeah, it would be nice to get the Carnage Souls and whatnot, but the amount of work and time that goes into fully clearing a lot of these really annoying latter half stages may not be worth the effort or the time in the future. It probably isn't. For a lot of stages I just haven't beat yet, or I have beat and I just don't want to beat again due to the RNG and whatnot. So we'll see. But now that I kind of have the pride out of the way, I'm less incentivized to fully clear Sintranos going forward, but we'll see. Again, a balance of time gear swapping and effort and whatnot. Let me know in the comment section down below how far you were able to make it in this rotation of the Cursed City. Did you get a full clear as well, or did you get stuck somewhere along the way? And let me know if any team might be helpful for you in where you kind of got stuck this rotation of the Cursed City. As always, if you did find this video helpful, then be sure to hit that like button down below. It really does help out the channel. And feel free to hit the subscribe button down below as well, if and only if you're enjoying the content overall on this channel for more content just like this one in the future. Thanks for watching and have a good one.